Good evening. My name's Frank Spencer. And recently, my wife Betty and my daughter Jessica, we moved into the village. But the first time we came here, we couldn't find our little house that we bought on eBay. So we were up the top road and we came across a man, a very aggressive looking man, and he had a dog with him, a big dog. And I went up to him and I said, "Excuse me, but my name's Frank Spencer, and my wife Betty and my daughter Jessica, we're just moving into the village. What's your name?" And he said, "My name's Johnson Lee Smith." I said, "Hello, Mr. Johnson Lee Smith. It's a pleasure to meet you." And I said to him, "Does your dog bite?" And he said, "No, my dog doesn't bite." So I went to stroke the dog, and he bit my finger. And I said to Mr. Johnson Lee Smith, I said, "Mr. Johnson Lee Smith, you just told me that your dog doesn't bite. Yes, it bit my finger." And he said, "That's not my dog." Mr. Johnson Lee Smith, he didn't seem to know where our cottage was, but he did say he could find it in the dark. So we walked up Mill Lane and we came across a man who was mowing his lawn. And I went across to him and I said, "Excuse me, but my name's Frank Spencer and my wife Betty and my daughter Jessica, we're just moving into the village. What's your name?" And he said, "My name is Victor Burney." And I'm president of the D-Club Golf Society. Do you swing? I mean, what a thing to ask! We haven't even moved into the village. You'd have thought he'd got to know us a bit better before he asked if we were swimmers. Anyway, he didn't seem to know where our little cottage was, so we carried on down the road and we came across another man, muscular man, good looking, but he had a tiny little white fluffy dog with him. And they didn't sort of match together. And I went up to him and I said, "Excuse me, but my name's Frank Spencer, my wife Betty, and my daughter Jessica, we're just moving into the village. What's your name?" And he said, "Vivian." I said, "Vivian?" He said, "Yes, Vivian." I said, "What sort of little dog is that, Vivian?" And he said, "It's a little shits." I said, "A little shits?" He said, "Yes, a little shits." And I was wondering what such a nice, cute, white, fluffy little dog had done to deserve such a name. But while I was talking to Vivian, I realised why. He'd done a whoopsie by the lamppost, a whoopsie by the tree, and a whoopsie right next to my foot. Well, Vivian didn't seem to know where our little cottage was, but I said to Betty, "Betty, I think we're going to fit in well here." Did you notice what Vivian was wearing? He'd got a hat on like mine and a coat like mine. But I said to Betty, "Please, Betty, don't make me have a little dog like that because I look silly. Anyway, we carried on down the road and we came to the school playing fields and there was something going on. And I went across to this man and I said, "Excuse me, but my name's Frank Spencer and my wife Betty and my daughter Jessica, we're just moving into the village. What's your name?" And he said, "All right, Chuck, my name's Ian Robinson." "Do you know how to bat cricket?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, no other bugger does around here. We're looking for a bloody umpire. Will you do some umpiring for us?" I said, "Yes, I would." And at this point, Mr. Robinson, he put his hands deep in his trouser pockets and he started fiddling. And he said, "I've got a right big pair of heavy bells in here somewhere." And he came out with these. They're all top of stumps. Now don't worry about your wife and daughter, they'll be alright with our ladies. They'll probably be half pissed for tea. So off I went into the middle of the field and I went and stood in front of these 3 sticks. And the batsman came in and he went over there and he stood in front of 3 other sticks. And he held his bat like this. And he looked at me and he said, "2." I said, "2 to you too." Anyway, the game started and the bowler bowled and the batsman completely missed the ball. And I could hear Betty and she waved. So I waved back. And then the bowler bowled again and the batsman missed the ball. Betty waved and I waved back. And it carried on like that for ages. We were having such a lovely time. Anyway, it all carried on and they were getting towards the end of their innings. Now I don't know much about cricket, but I did notice that not one batsman hit a ball and nobody ran between the 3 sticks. But when I looked at the scoreboard, it said 164. Anyway, the innings finished and we all went in for a cup of tea. And Mr. Robinson, he came up to me and he said, "Oh, well done there, lad, absolutely marvellous. They won't beat that score. No, that's great for lower cleavers, that. Well done, lad, absolutely marvellous. Do your best in the second half as well." I had a quick cup of tea and I went back out there. And the other team, they started batting. And this time they did hit the ball. And they did run between the 3 bits of sticks. But they also kept losing their big heavy bails. They went flying all over the place. And before you knew it, it was the last batsman was coming in. And he walked in, and he walked towards me. And he had a very red face. And he had steam coming out of his ears. And he looked very angry. And as he got nearer, he got taller. Taller. And I said, "Hello, I'm Frank Spencer." And my wife Betty and Jessica, they're over there under the big tree. But we're just moving into the village. "What's your name?" And he said, "My name's Gareth Williams. And I'm not very happy with you, Mr. Spencer. Oh, yes, I know who you are. Listen, our team bowled the best they've ever bowled, ever. Not one batsman could hit a ball. Yet somehow, they managed to score 164 runs. Due to you waving to your wife and daughter like this. Every time you did, the scorer added 6 runs to the score. Now I'm the last batsman in. There's 6 balls left. And we need 36 runs to win.
But I tell you, Mr. Spencer, what I'm going to do, because I'm so angry, I'm so mad, that I'm going to get those runs single-handedly. The worst bowler in the world is about to bowl. And when he does, Mr. Spencer, I'm going to knock every ball that he bowls over that privet hedge, over Oden Lane, and straight into the garden of that little cottage. And each time I do that, Mr. Spencer, I want you to wave at your wife and daughter like you did before. Is that understood? I couldn't argue with him, could I? He was taller than me. So anyway, the worst bowler in the world, he ran up and he started to bowl. And I mean, he was the worst bowler in the world. I mean, some mothers do have them. I think his name was David. And I think he'd had far too many of those drinks. I've forgotten what sort they were now. Anyway, he bowled, and Mr. Williams, he came down the wicket, and he hit that ball, and the ball went straight over the privet hedge, straight over Houghton Lane, but it didn't go through into the garden of the little cottage, no. It went straight through an upstairs window. And the second ball, Mr. Williams, he came down the wicket, and he hit the ball, it went straight over the privet hedge, straight over Houghton Lane, but this time it went through the kitchen window. And he did that with the next three balls. But each time, the ball went over the privet hedge, over Houghton Lane, and through a different window. There was one ball left, and Mr. Williams, he only needed 6 for his team to win. And he came running down the wicket, and he hit the ball so hard that not only the ball went over the privet hedge, but so did the bat. It flew over the privet hedge, over Houghton Lane, the bat went straight through the lounge window, and the ball, it carried on over the roof and straight through the conservatory. And Mr. Williams, he came up to me with a great big smile on his face, and he said, There, I told you I could do it, I told you I could do it. Oh, Mr. Spencer, I was so angry with you. Oh, but we won. Now, look, I'm sorry about what happened earlier and me losing my temper with you, Mr. Spencer, but look, let's shake hands, let bygones be bygones, and we'll have a pint down the King's Arms later. Oh, and by the way, you know that cottage you were looking for? It's the other side, that privet hedge.
Betty, Jessica, Mr. Williams has found our cottage.